Jeff here. So today, I had something I wanted to talk about. Um, there's a lot of different things that I know about the graves and stuff like that, historical Earth events. One comes to mind. I don't have this out there, but it's the sheep thing. There's a sheep thing, and it occurred during the time of the one called Yeshua, or well, anyway, most people would refer to it as Jesus historically. However, at the same time, the historic Yeshua is different than the one that's thought of. So when people talk about Jesus, usually they're referring to someone a different one. There's a switch. So there's like so when all that consciousness energy goes to Jesus, they're actually referring to the impaler of meaning. So the impaler of meaning is sort of a placeholder for and it's a gray or fish beast. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, it's a part of the Gray Empire. It's sort of a figurehead that takes the place of Jesus or Yeshua. But the historical Yeshua is different it's historically it's a different one than we're all that conscious. When we think of Jesus, it's referring to the impaler of meaning, who is actually Judas. In the biblical stories, that's Judas. So when they're praising Jesus and all the consciousness around that and the energies and all that, that's Judas. Yeah, Judas Iscariot, that one. I don't know the last name for sure, but I mean, historically, I mean, as far as what's written down, you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so yeah, that one. Okay, so that's one of the same. That's the same one. That Judas and what is thought of as Jesus. Yeah. So then there's the actual historical Yeshua who walked the earth, and that one's a different one. That one has a thing where they are very closely related in consciousness to the Father, Gray, which is so there's the vengeful one, or also known as the eternal freedom. So those both work for this. There's many names sometimes. The eternal freedom, um, the Father, Gray, oftentimes it's portrayed as a father in religion and mythology. Usually a head god or something like that. And it has a son, and that'd be Yeshua. So Yeshua then is what I would say end, or also there's titles. They all have titles. So end or speechless. That'd be Yeshua. But yeah, so then there's the impaler meaning, who is Judas, and that's different, but that's where all that. Anyway, yeah. So there's a sheep thing actually, which is so now the crucifixion event. Now I have a I have my events, my version of those events recorded actually. I should probably post that because I mean it should be out there. I mean, and somewhere it should be out there somewhere. My version of events. I have a soul history or a soul heritage that includes the Roman captain who led the hunt for Yeshua and eventually captured him and he carried the cross to the crucifixion. Yeah, that's in my soul heritage. I have a lot of different things, and I know that makes me crazy technically, but I mean, anyway, whatever. So, anyway, so there is a sheep thing. Now, I wouldn't know of it personally. I was not, see, but it's part of the events that are around the crucifixion of Yeshua. Okay, there's, uh, Yeshua is in love with a particular gray leader, um, as was Judas, or the Impaler meaning, Um, so, um, so Judas was with, or the Impaler meaning was with, Yeshua's lover, or the bringer of woe, um, which is a sister to. I mean, I mean that's in mythology too. It's often there's a lot of family stuff and all that. Yeah, it's a sister to. Yeah, I mean whatever, but I mean, so it's a sister to Yeshua. I think so. And then anyway, but the Impaler meaning and the sister, the bringer of woe, had a thing as well. So then Yeshua found out, and then what Yeshua did was he cast the bringer of woe, or Inky, as far as I understand, into a sheep. So you know the possession thing and all that. Yeah, so he took Inky and he forced them into forced them into a sheep. And then he raped, yeah, the sheep, raped the sheep, and that's the thing that happened there. So Yeshua took the sister Gray, who is the bringer of woe, cast her into a sheep, and then raped the sheep, and it was very violent. I understood. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But so yeah, so there's a lot of things that come up with that, like the Silence of the Lambs. Um, I mean, sometimes things will start to hit on this sheep thing. So but yeah, so there's other things too, like Lamb of God. I go into that because it's interesting, but I'll tell the sheep story first. So then what happened was um, after Yeshua did that, the Impaler meaning, or Judas, felt like saying, "Here we are," and so come get him. That was what I did. I was the Roman captain who went and got him. But yeah, so in my soul heritage. But yeah, so that's so there was an internal issue going on. So then there was now in my account of the event, my account of the events, I mentioned a UFO that was hanging over in the sky. Um, as far as I understand, it was the ship of it was the ship of um, the Vengeful One, or the Eternal Freedom. It was the Eternal Freedom's ship that was flying over and watching the crucifixion of um, Shaw. But there was the sheep thing, and then that started a war. As far as I understand, that started a war within the Grey Empire. I understand. Anyway, but yeah. But how appropriate, Lamb of God, Lamb of God. Okay, that phrase, how appropriate, because there's a thing that happened when now in the Great Origins, they first developed no point technology, long time ago, and actually a galaxy that's not this one. So that's where they developed it, and WL and Wolf Mark Malot. Not Andromeda. No, they have holdings in two galaxies. Milky Way is one of them, and then WLM is the other one. But that's grays. That's grays, not reptilians or fish beasts, which is a different subject, sort of different thing. They're somewhere else, but I mean I don't want to get into it. All right. So yeah. So in the Great Origins story, um, this is so what happened was the Father Gray, or the Vengeful One, forced himself on his younger son, who was on end or speechless, and there was a thing with cutting off. Like, oh, you know how I do this stuff? You know how I do all this stuff? Yeah, see, but Grays do something like that. It's just mine's different. Mine's different. Mine's more free. But Grays have a thing with that as well. They do that with movement. So it's more of a thing. The psychic stuff is more of a thing, and institutionalized. It's more of an institutionalized thing for Grays. Okay, so humans don't like that institutionalized usually. Or, like we like our things to be solid, and so that's great. And I'm like, that's how I am, solid and real, and that's what I like. So I don't want to get into it, but moving on. So the Father Gray, the Vengeful One, in Great Origins, this is when no point technology was first developed. So they had a species history, and then they developed this technology that allows for faster than light travel. And so when they developed it, there was a social control element, and that there was a situation where that was going on, and that fueled a lot of planetary I don't know subservience to the technology. Um, so that fueled that, and so there's a social thing going on where now there's an older brother that Eternal Freedom had. So the Eternal Freedom and Speechless, right? So then there's an older brother who is known as the Impaler of Meaning. So that's the same as Judas, yeah. But it's one of the 12 or 13, whatever it is. But yeah, uh, so the Impaler of Meaning was blamed for these acts where the younger Gray had his hands cut off and tongue and stuff like that, so they couldn't speak. Okay, and yeah, that sounds like Titus, right? Yeah, I know, but I'll get to that. All right. So anyway, yeah, the Impaler Meaning was blamed for it. However, he was a war hero, as far as I understand. In the military, and had a good enough rank. So, but then there was like this psychic thing going on. So, this whole thing was, I know they did it, and I know this one did it, and then there's younger Gray, and then there's covering up of the mutilations that happened and stuff like that. So that whole thing was spiraling, and then that's how no point technology on the Gray homeworld developed. It's not as oh, anyway, I should move on. Yeah. So now there is a leader of the planet at the time that developed the no point technology, and that would be that one is called the Deceiver. So the Deceiver was the leader of the Gray Planet, or well, one of the factional leaders of the Gray Planet, and then they won. When they had forced implants, that was the thing that had to be done, and yeah. And no point technology, of course, there's social controls using no point technology with implants that were forced, and that started the Gray Empire. But yeah, so Lamb of God, right? Okay, so Jesus being called the Lamb of God, right? Okay, so what, that's very appropriate, because that's a thing. That's a thing. So see, because, yeah, that's a thing. Jesus was the Lamb of God. Yeah, that's a thing. And that's an actual thing. Which is where, what Yeshua did to the sheep here on earth, casting the bringer of woe into the sheep, and then, yeah, but Lamb of God. That's the thing. So anyway, yeah, so Silence of the Lambs, Lamb of God, that's all very interesting. Yeah, doesn't that sound like Titus? Doesn't that sound like Titus? I think it sounds like Titus. And the thing is it is, but Titus, the play Titus, um, uh, is an echo, of the past. So it's sort of a, people will often, I think, interpret it as being more of a timeless take on war and violence, a timeless play about war and violence. And yeah, it is though, there's an event like that with the Lavinia, with the hands and stuff. Yeah, so that is an echo. That's an echo of the past. So it's like that's sort of trying to get out what's going on with that echo. So but then that repeats. So that event historically repeats. Now, so this is a different day and age, and now the players have all changed, and so no point technology was developed on Earth, and so here are these events that are occurring and it's like an echo of the great origin story, which is pretty much Titus Andronicus. Now, I mean, I know that's really weird and all that, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a thing. And so, in the Great Origins story, Paler of Meaning would have played Titus Andronicus in Great Origins. Then Paler of Meaning would have been Titus. So I mean, I'm sure it's happened again and again, but in this particular day and age, I actually play the role of Titus Andronicus. So now Titus is the father, right? But that's not that's Chiron and Demetrius. Chiron and Demetrius would be the father or the vengeful one, that or the eternal freedom, that because they're the ones who did that to live it, so that'd be the eternal freedom, and not the older brother, the impaler meaning, who would have been Titus then. So you see what I'm saying? So it's like yeah, but I mean it's a little bit different. It's not exactly 100%. I mean, but it's like, but it doesn't have to be. It's it's blurred. It's blurred, but it's supposed to be blurred because it's things change. Things change. Things will. It's not going to repeat exactly the same way. They're different. It's coming out different. But it's sort of like an echo, a blurred echo. So it's not the same thing. Yeah. Anyway. Um, so yeah. Yeah, so there were 12 or 13 gray consciousness heads, but those areas of consciousness are no longer, how do I say it? It's no longer functional, and like they were, because they had big effects over Earth. Because the gray leaders, now the gray leaders had a way of lowering themselves. So lowering, like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm putting the coffee pot in the fridge, or tired, or like, I don't know, whatever you want me to do. So, you know what I'm saying, lower, or hurt. So when you're experiencing something traumatic, it tends to lower the consciousness. And it can happen in different physical areas, whatever. I mean, yeah, so gray leaders have a way of lowering themselves, so there are planetary effects by their presence. So gray leader then would have if one's there at the time, then it would create an effect on global consciousness. So all 12 or 13 are here on Earth. We're here, well, more or less, all right, more or less. Okay. So yeah. So but they go extremely low, and there's a lot of control. So the deceiver is still functioning, as well as a functioning part of that sort of thing. That sort of thing is still happening today. But before, like when no point technology was developed here on Earth, there were like 12 or 13 of them. So I mean, there's a few left alive, and they're left alive for a reason. They're left alive for a reason. It's because 12 or 13 of them is a little bit much. So something had to be done because we could not deal with that. So and there's help coming from outside. There really is. So but yeah. So now there's only like a couple, but they're left alive for a reason, and that's because Earth can do this. Earth can get better, um, and that's why they're left alive. Earth can do it themselves. You know what I'm saying? So let's say you have, how do I say it right? All right, how do I say it right? Let's say you got like this big hostile thing, and then someone, and so they're your enemy for a long time, but not really, and you can't do anything about it. Then you are able to do something about it. Then someone kills every single last one of them for you. It's like, you know what I'm saying? That one's left alive. That one's left alive for you. That's what I'm saying. So it's like it's like it's like things had to be done in order for Earth to survive. So things had to be done. Because I mean they all have they all have no point technology as a part of them, so they all have to follow it. Even if they're nice, if their consciousness provides some sort of nice, because these are all the deities. These are all a lot of the deities, not every single one. A lot of the deities that people worship and stuff like that. So I mean, and there's different things. I mean, it's not just Christianity. It's like all of them. Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, um, anyway. So yeah. That 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 they all have to follow no point technology. So if someone has they all have to follow their leader, and that's they all have to follow them. And since Earth is an enemy to them these days, and not being incorporated into their empire, instead it's an enemy of the empire, of the Gray Empire. They have to. So I mean, even if they had a good heart for whoever knows how long, there's really not much of a choice. So yeah, but I mean, there's nuances and stuff like that, and I could go on about every detail, but it's like I don't want to do all that. It's a general thing where they have to follow that. So I mean, they all have to go. They all have to die. All the Greys have to die. They must go. They must be evicted. That's the thing, because they all will have to follow no point technology, and they don't belong here on Earth. They do not belong here, so they have to go. Now, there's other things to it, and I could go into it, but it's like, yeah. So, um, anyway, um, yeah. I don't think if there's anything else I wanted to say. I wanted to mention all that because I haven't had this up for long. I still got another one to post. I still have the one where the Roman captain's account of the events around Yeshua's death, who is not the Jesus that we commonly think of. That's more like the impaler of meaning, who would have sold the historical Yeshua out. to me, and a soul heritage way of speaking. Oh, there's one more point. One more point. Unforgivable sin. So there is, so in the Bible, there is talk of an unforgivable sin. Isn't that interesting? And I know how to do it. So I'm gonna do that. I'll show you how to do the unforgivable sin, and I know what it is, and I can do it just because that's it's easy. It goes like this. Now I don't remember what the text says. I don't remember what it says. But the way to do it goes like this. I mean, if you search unforgivable sin, it'll probably lead to it. I don't remember what it says, but I know what it is. Is the thing. So the vengeful one, the eternal freedom, the eternal freedom. So that's a gray. And they're not a god. They might have a lot of power. That's not life. That's not existence. That's not all it is. That's just the gray that's really powerful. And that's the vengeful one, or the eternal freedom. The eternal freedom. And I know this. I understand it. I understand it perfectly well. And that's not a god. That's not anything powerful. It's just a gray. That's all it is. And so I know that, and I know who it is. I know who it is. What I'm saying is, I know that the eternal freedom, who it is, the eternal freedom, is a gray, and nothing more. And so that is unforgivable. Yeah. So whatever. I'm good with that. So anyway. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.